U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected to announce sanctions against the Netzach Yehuda Battalion in the IDF in coming days. This would be a historic and a brazen first move for the Biden administration and would prohibit a unit in Israel's military from receiving any U.S. assistance, any aid, any training, and potentially could go down the road towards something much worse, like getting arrested when you fly into the United States. The reason? They're alleged violations of human rights abuses in Judea and Samaria, also falsely known as the West Bank. In the meantime, there have been thousands of acts of terrorism committed by Arab residents of Judea and Samaria against Jews, the latest of which left a 14-year-old boy, a 14-year-old shepherd boy, dead. Also, 82% of the Arab residents of Judea and Samaria support Hamas and their actions on October 7th. I'm sure you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. Surely Biden long ago sanctioned all of these guys for their actual violations of human rights abuses, right? Unfortunately, no. All of that and a whole lot more coming up on today's episode. I'm Luke Hilton. This is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, glad to have you with us. I also want to say happy Passover, Chag Pesach Sameach to all of our Jewish friends and any Christians who are also celebrating Passover tonight. Please go ahead and subscribe, hit those notification bells, and let me know down in the comments if you're a new subscriber to the Israel Guys. We are going up. The channel is growing exponentially. We can hardly keep up with it. We thank you guys so much for being with us. Make sure you follow us on all of the social media platforms as well. It's all at the Israel Guys. We're talking X, Instagram, Facebook, Rumble, everywhere else you can think of. We're also on Telegram. You guys can catch us there. And don't forget to sign up for the Israel Summit. Less than 1 month away now, guys. Actually, 1 month from tonight. theisraelguys.com/summit. Also, the link is down in the description below. May 20th through 22nd, Nashville, Tennessee. We want to see every single one of you guys there. Obviously, we know that's not possible, but as many of you guys as can come, stand with Israel for 3 days in Nashville, Tennessee, make our voices heard. You probably heard what's going on in Columbia University right now and other college campuses all over the United States. We need to fight back at that, guys. We need Israel supporters, Zionists, biblical Zionists to come together and make their voices heard peacefully, but we do need a voice of unity in support of Israel right now. So check out the Israel Summit, May 20th through 22nd. Get your tickets today. So President Biden wished the Jewish people a happy Passover. He was pretty strong in saying that he has strong support for the Jewish state. He condemned anti-Semitism. He also said that he and his administration are working around the clock to free the hostages, which obviously we know is not true because those are nice words, but he's kind of speaking out of two sides of his mouth because his State Department also said that they're about to announce sanctions against the ultra-Orthodox Haredi unit in the IDF. And we'll get to that in just a second. But first, watch this short video. So as you can see, this is a civilian who is also a reservist in the IDF, but he's a civilian driving with probably his wife or his family in the car. He sees a Palestinian flag right on the side of the road, goes to take the flag down, and because this is Israeli territory, right? As soon as he kicks the flag, it explodes. Turns out that it's an incendiary device. I just want to pull out a couple things in this video. Thankfully, by the way, the man is okay. He sustained minor injuries, went to the hospital, was released pretty quickly. But it could have been much worse. People could have been killed. He could have been killed, depending on the size of the bomb, because it was actually a bomb, if you can see by the explosion. I just want to say a couple of things. Terrorists in Gaza and Judea and Samaria and other places like Hezbollah and Lebanon are not always just targeting the military. They're also targeting civilians. They planted what is supposed to be their national flag, right? Which should be a symbol of peace and strength, but instead they're using it as a lure to try and blow Jews up. They planted it next to a road where Jewish men, women, children drive every single day. And this is the road that I've driven multiple times with my wife and with my children, right? And they are luring anyone who is susceptible to come in and try and blow them up and kill them. Question is the Biden administration sanctioning these guys like Hamas, Fatah, Hezbollah? The answer is very short. No, they're not. And that brings us to an Axios article that just came out and was reported across several other outlets. A special U.S. State Department panel recommended several months ago that Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, sanction multiple Israeli military and police units that operate specifically in Judea and Samaria. In particular, that they be disqualified from receiving U.S. aid or assistance or military training, anything like that. We know that the U.S. and Israel cooperate a lot with military training and partnerships and like training between their forces. So it's now been reported in this Axios article, which was, by the way, written by Barak Ravid, who's not necessarily known for his conservative opinions. So we take this with a grain of salt. But it is reported that some of these units, like in the Israeli police, received correction, and they're now no longer behaving the same way they were. So basically, they've reformed their ways, and now they're no longer in danger of being sanctioned, as if they were 2-year-olds or toddlers. I don't know if that's true. It's being reported by Barak Ravid. But there's one particular battalion in the IDF called the Netzach Yehuda Battalion, which also just happens to be a Haredi unit, an ultra-Orthodox unit. Yeah, all the news you guys heard is that the ultra-Orthodox don't serve in the IDF. Well, a bunch of them do, at least until now. And now their unit in the IDF is being specifically targeted by the Biden administration to be sanctioned. And what for? For their alleged human rights violations, or to put it more simply, their operations in Israel's biblical heartland. So there is a law called the Leahy Law, a 1997 law authored by then Senator Patrick Leahy, prohibits U.S. foreign aid and Defense Department training programs from going to foreign security, military, and police units credibly alleged to have committed human rights violations. Now, notice it says credibly, okay? Not some random story about, one civilian dying in a foreign country and therefore we sanction an entire IDF battalion, right? At a recent press conference in Italy, Secretary of State, and this is where all the news is coming from, Antony Blinken was asked about this panel in the State Department, special U.S. State Department panel investigation, and wondering, what's going on or what's happening. And he said that he had made his determination based off the panel's findings and recommendations. And then he said, quote, "You can expect to see them in the days ahead." So now we know the U.S. State Department is planning to sanction a unit in Israel's military. Imagine celebrating Passover on the battlefields in the heart of Gaza from the dangerous borders of Lebanon. Meir Panim stands at the forefront, bringing the light of Passover to every corner of the Holy Land, reaching out to those families displaced, helping Holocaust survivors and families deep in poverty. They urgently need our help to experience Passover. Every soldier deserves to celebrate Passover and feel the festivity and unity despite being far from home. Join Meir Panim to spread hope across Israel by providing essentials like pantry boxes, prepaid grocery vouchers, holiday meals, and Passover staples such as matzah. Echoing the words of Psalm 82, 3 and 4, to defend the weak and fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and oppressed, rescue the weak and needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked, we need to act now. You can unite together and ensure those in Israel fighting against true evil feel the support of us, people from the nation standing behind them, whether they face an empty pantry, grieving losses, or aching for their homes and loved ones on the battlefields. Your support can transform Passover for hundreds of thousands of Israelis. You can visit the link in the description below to help free those in need from despair, hunger, and fear, ensuring no one faces Passover alone or is hungry. Just click the link in the description below to support the work of Meir Panim today. Question is, who's behind these sanctions? Because obviously we know that the U.S. State Department is not just coming up with this all on their own. And if we look a little deeper, as reported by JNS, we see that there's a U.S.-based NGO called DAWN, D-A-W-N, Democracy for the Arab World Now. They were a U.S.-based NGO founded in 2022. And since October 7th, they've doubled down even more, seeking arrest warrants for Israelis who enter the U.S., and they also tried really hard to block Israel's entry into the U.S. visa waiver program. So this is not just an NGO who's like, any human rights abuses by the IDF or any foreign military, we need to crack down on that according to the U.S. law. No, that's not what's happening. They're actually trying to prohibit Israel from being accepted into the U.S. visa waiver program, which is just basically like, that means that if you're a first world democratic country who is an ally of the United States, you should be allowed to enter freely. Because up until now, up until recently, Israelis had to go through an incredibly difficult process to obtain visas ahead of time before entering the United States. Many of you who are watching this, probably if you have a passport from a first world democratic country who's an ally of the United States, you just fly to the US, you get a 3-month visa, and you enter, right? No, Israelis had to go through incredible hoops and bureaucratic red tape. And many of them just got rejected on a regular basis for their visas, and they couldn't enter at all. And this NGO saying, no, we're trying to block Israel from being accepted in this program. We're trying to get arrest warrants for Israelis who we think just, should be arrested when they enter the United States. By the way, the House, I was just in Washington, D.C., and while I was there, the House of Representatives passed a bill that will strip nonprofits of their tax-exempt status if it's found proven that they support terrorism. Now, why that's interesting is this NGO, Dawn, has several board members who are directly connected to organizations who are simply fronts for the Muslim Brotherhood. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but it's interesting because they could potentially be the next on the list. When this bill gets signed into law, they could be on the list to lose their tax-exempt status. And this is the NGO that the U.S. State Department's going off of when they announced sanctions on the IDF, right? So 2 board members, Issam Omesh is a former national president of the Muslim American Society, which, according to federal prosecutors, was, quote, founded as the overt arm of the Muslim Brotherhood in America. And this is straight from a JNS article. Another board member, Nihad Awad, was co-founder of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Remember CARE, Ilhan Omar's favorite organization, which was identified as a Muslim Brotherhood front group and named as an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2008 U.S. versus Holy Land Foundation trial. So, you guys getting this yet? NGO who has given enough information to the State Department and put enough pressure on them to now slap sanctions on the IDF has board members that are directly connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay? You guys got all that? You think that's crazy enough? So Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu's response, he wrote on Twitter, but in Hebrew, which I think when he writes in Hebrew, that means he's trying to make himself clear to the United States, but it's in Hebrew, so it's not quite as blatant, right? But the translation is basically, quote, sanctions must not be imposed on the Israel Defense Forces. In recent weeks, I've been working against the imposition of sanctions on Israeli citizens, including in my conversations with senior U.S. government officials. At a time when our soldiers are fighting terrorist monsters, the intention to impose a sanction on a unit in the IDF is the height of absurdity and a moral low. The government I head will act by all means against these motives. So I just want to be clear about these sanctions. The U.S. is trying to sanction an IDF military unit for alleged crimes. The only one I've actually seen mentioned in these articles so far, the only alleged crime, is an Arab man in Judea and Samaria who died after he was detained by the Netzach Yehuda Battalion, right? Okay, detained an Arab man who's found dead later. Don't know any more details or many other details than that, or why exactly he died, but this is the alleged crime that everybody's talking about, right? At the same time, and I don't know whether, who is at fault for that, and I'll get to more of that in just a second, but at the same time, Israel is fighting actual terrorists in the form of Hamas in Gaza, Fatah and Hamas supporters in Judea and Samaria, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Iran in Iran. Israel's people were butchered on October 7th. They have now been attacked with ballistic missiles, which, by the way, was not just simply Iran trying to show Israel that they could attack them. That was an actual attack that could have left many, many people dead and Israel's country devastated if 99% of them were not shot down by the IDF. The U.S. State Department decides they need to worry about by the way, religious soldiers in their military who have the audacity to serve their country just through military service. U.S. State Department sanctioning religious IDF soldiers just for the crime of serving in the military. There's no way around this. This is pure Jew hatred from the U.S. State Department, and if they actually sanction this unit, it would be the first time ever that the United States has taken action such as this against Israel. Benny Gantz is the chairman of the National Unity Party, which is center-left, probably more left, in the Knesset in Israel, sent a message to Secretary of State Antony Blinken, asked him to reconsider because he said something like this hurts Israel's democracy and credibility, and it's entirely unnecessary because Israel has a functioning judiciary system, meaning that any failures or shortcomings or crimes in the IDF are dealt with, they're investigated with, and dealt with through their legal system because they're a democratic country. Remember the strike that hit the WCK, the World Central Kitchen truck, and killed 7 aid workers? Even though it came out later that it was Hamas's fault, right, for that strike, Israel immediately did a thorough investigation and as a result fired several of the officers who were involved in authorizing that strike. They took care of it. Even though it came out that it was Hamas's fault, Israel said, no, we're going to take responsibility. We're going to let go of the officers who approved this strike, right? And the bottom line is Israel is a democracy. They have rule of law. They have a balance of powers. They have multiple branches of government. And when there are violations of the law, when there are real or perceived violations of the law, they investigate. And if they find anyone at fault, they're punished. Plain and simple. This is entirely unnecessary, and it's anti-Semitism from the U.S. State Department. One more response before we wrap up. And that is Dr. Michael Oren, former member of Knesset, former Israeli ambassador to the United States. He, in an interview given to Arutz Sheva, he said, quote, "It's true, if there is an intention to sanction any unit of the Israeli army, it's totally unacceptable. It's a violation of our sovereignty. It's a slap in the face of the IDF. It's also a very dangerous precedent because what begins with Netzach Yehuda could end tomorrow with Golani, or the paratroopers, where young men and women who fought in our army could go visit a foreign capital and find themselves even being arrested at an airport." Dr. Michael Oren goes on to talk about how this is also dangerous for the United States because if they start this precedent of sanctioning other foreign militaries for alleged crimes and violations of human rights, then it could come back to hurt them because then you could find other countries sanctioning U.S. Marines and being arrested at airports in other countries. Dr. Michael Oren says, quote, "Well, you did this to Israel, so it's a very, very bad precedent. It's also a blow to Israeli society where we are trying to resolve the issues of Haredi service in the military, and now comes along this action." Basically is saying you've heard a lot of the ultra-Orthodox in Israel don't want to serve in the military, but now, like in the recent years, more and more have chosen to serve in the military because they want to support their country. But now, what are they going to look at? They're going to look at it and say, well, if I go in the military, then I'm just going to get sanctioned and arrested by the United States, and they're not going to want to continue along this path. So bottom line, this is pure Jew hatred. Let's call anti-Semitism what it is. It's Jew hatred, and we should stand against it. And that's why you guys need to come to the Israel Summit. Please consider making the trip wherever you are in the United States, especially if you're within driving distance of Nashville. But there's also cheap flights to Nashville, guys. Consider hopping on a plane, getting in the car, coming to the Israel Summit, May 20th through 22nd. Link is in the description below to get your tickets today. It's shaping up to be an incredible event, and I don't want you guys to miss out on it. So, happy Passover to all of our listeners, especially our Jewish friends in Israel and Jewish friends in America and around the world. But as Israel prepares to celebrate this holiday, remember, what is this holiday about? It's about freedom from slavery. It's about victory from the Jewish people's oppressors, and it's about a journey to the land of promise. Let's pray for just that and continue to stand strong with our Jewish brothers and sisters in Israel. By the way, don't forget to support the incredible work of Meir Panim, who is directly impacting the people of Israel through their work with their food programs. Just click the link down in the description below to support Meir Panim. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know what you think about this this topic in the comment section below. As always, we're here every single day, Monday through Friday, except for tomorrow because it's Passover. We won't be broadcasting. We'll be back on Wednesday. We're here every Monday through Friday with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.